Hi friends, this is Carissa. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, Inky Fairy Designs. Today I have another project using the April contents from the Hedgehog Hollow box. You can see here, this is the card we're going to be making. I pulled out the Man Glitter stamp set, which is probably my favorite from this entire box. I also pulled out some of this paper by Unity Stamp Company because I really wanted to use that plaid. I thought it was the perfect background for the card I had in mind. I'm going to be using some Distress Oxides today, not for ink blending, surprise, surprise, but actually to do my stamping. So I pulled out 5 colors. Let's see. Bundled Sage, Forest Moss is going to be my green tones. And then I have Gathered Twigs and Pumice Stone and Black Soot. So what I'm going to do is like a multicolor stamping with this one stamp. Really fun technique and really simple to do, but I would say that having a stamp positioner makes this so much easier. I love my mini MISTI. But you could also use like the Tim Holtz stamp platform or whatever stamp positioner you have. Definitely will make this a lot easier. So what I do is I just stamp my colors. So I stamped 2 colors onto my trees, that Bundled Sage all over, and then I just kind of angled my stamp a little bit to get the edges with that little bit of darker green, just to give it some dimension. I like that. I think it looks cool. Then I wipe off the stamp, all of the ink from the stamp where I didn't want that green. And I just used a baby wipe for this, and I can kind of put my finger in the baby wipe and really get in there and get to those areas that I don't want to have that color. So now I'm going to the sentiment part, which looks like a wooden sign to me. So that's why I used the brown color, and I just inked that all up. And I went a little crazy, so I had a lot of ink to clean up off of these trees. But it's really simple. This stamp, you can really see clearly where like one image stops and the other one begins, and I can just really clean that up and then shut the door, and I get this perfectly stamped area. I have a little bit, you can see a little bit of that brown got onto the little blade, but that's going to cover up with the gray once I get to that. I wanted it to be a little bit darker, so I'm going to go ahead and stamp it again. Just doing that same technique where I ink up the area that I want and then remove the ink from the area that I don't want it. You could probably use a mask if you want. You could cover up parts of the stamp and, you know, then remove the mask and do your stamping. You don't have to wipe off the ink if you want to use that. But I felt like it was easier just because the image was not like square. You know, the trees kind of curved a little bit into that sign area. And I thought a mask might be a little bit more, I mean, I guess you could stamp that and then cut the mask out and it'd be perfect. So that's another way that you could do this entire process, is just stamping maybe your entire image in just some black ink onto some masking paper, cut out each of the areas, and then you could use those and mask that off, and then you don't have to do all of this cleanup. So, you know, there's 2 ways. There's always multiple ways to get something done, and so that's just another idea. So I ended up doing the pumice stone on its own, and then I remembered, oh yeah, I wanted to give it some dimension like the trees. And so I inked it up again, and now I'm coming back in with that black soot and just trying to kind of roll it onto the stamp and just get the edges a little bit darker. And that worked out pretty good. And now I'm just going to stamp that down. And it looks so cool. I love it. It's just a great way like to create your focal image when you're doing like a really simple card like I am today. So I'm taking this pattern paper and my guillotine trimmer, and I'm going to trim it down just slightly less than 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, because as you know, I'm going to create a top folding A2 size card. That is my go-to. I apologize for any screaming that you hear in the background. I do have 5 kids, so sometimes when I'm making voiceovers, it's just impossible to get complete silence. So I wanted to add a little bit more interest and texture to this panel before I went ahead and cut it down. So I'm using those same colors of Distress inks and adding a little bit water and then adding some splatters because I love my splatters. And so I took that green and I'm trying to just add it around the area of the stamp that has that color. So I took the black soot, did it around the little saw blade. Now I'm taking that brown and just going around the sign area. So I have like those colors in the splatters where the colors are on the stamp. So now to add a little bit of shimmer and play on that sentiment that says sawdust is man glitter, I'm going to add a little bit of sparkle with a sparkle pen just to that saw blade. Here you can see it a little bit closer. You can see that little bit of shimmer. I just love these sparkle pens for adding small details like this. So I used the additional A2 layers from Waffle Flower to cut out my sentiment panel. And now I'm going to distress the edges of this pattern paper with my Tonic distressor, paper distressor. I think, you know, a little distressing on a masculine card doesn't hurt. It's that little bit of detail, gives it a little bit more interest and dimension. And I think we need to bring back the distressing, right? It was a huge thing a few years ago, and I love it. Excuse me. So now I'm going to take my cardstock that I have cut in half at 4 1/4 and score it at 5 1/2 to create my card base. I'm going to take some archival ink and black soot and just edge the panel just a bit to give it a little bit dimension. I'm going to add some adhesive to the back of that fun plaid pattern paper. I love it. It looks like paint, like watercolor, and you guys know how much I love watercolor, right? So yeah, that I was just totally drawn to this entire paper collection. And this one was perfect for this card. I added a bit of dimensional tape to the back of my sentiment panel. This is the one that is like thinner than your, you know, traditional dimensional tape. It's a little bit thinner. I like it. It adds just a touch of dimension, and it makes it a lot easier to mail, put in the mail, and not going to get eaten up by those machines. The final thing that I did off camera was I did add a little bit of twine ribbon. I felt like it needed just something a little bit more. I do so much like simple flat cards without any embellishments. I thought this needed something, and this cream burlap ribbon was perfect. So that's my card for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it inspired you to create some masculine cards using the box from the Hedgehog Hollow this month. If you haven't gotten yours, they're still available. You can check it out, the Hedgehog Hollow. Down in the description, I have a link to that. As always, if you're inspired by anything you see here on my channel, please tag me on social media at Inky Fairy Designs. I love to come around and see what you're creating. And that's it for me, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.